Okay guys, we're back to finish the magic finger. We're going to find out what happened to the Gregs now that they have their wings and find out what those ducks are going to do inside the house. Okay. It must have been about this time that I, back in my own house, picked up the telephone and tried to call Philip. I wanted to see if the family was all right. Hello, I said. Quack, said a voice on the other end. Who is it? I asked. Quack, quack. Philip, I said, is that you? Quack, 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 quack. Oh, stop it, I said. Then there came a very funny noise. It was like a bird laughing. I put my telephone down quickly. Oh, that magic finger, I cried. What has it done to my friends? And there's the duck on the telephone. That night, while Mr. and Mrs. Greg and Philip and William were trying to get some sleep up in the high nest, a great wind began to blow. The tree knocked from side to side, and everyone, even Mr. Greg, was afraid that the nest would fall down. Then came the rain. It rained, and the water ran into the nest, and they all got wet as could be. And oh, it was a bad, bad night. Doesn't sound like fun, does it? At last the morning came, and with it the warm sun. Well, said Mrs. Greg, thank goodness that's over. I never want to sleep in a nest again. She got up and looked over the side. Help, she cried. Look down there, look. What is it, my love? Said Mr. Greg. He stood up and peeped over the side. He got the surprise of his life. On the ground below them stood 4 enormous ducks, as tall as men, and 3 of them were holding guns in their hand. One had Mr. Greg's gun, one had Philip's, and one had William's gun. They were all pointing right up at the nest. What comes around goes around sometimes, huh? It's not. Those ducks are now hunting them. No, 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 called Mr. and Mrs. Greg both together. Don't shoot, please don't shoot. Why not? Said one of the ducks. It was the one who wasn't holding a gun. You're always shooting at us. Oh, but that's not the same, said Mr. Greg. We're allowed to shoot ducks. Who allows you? Asked the duck. We allow each other, said Mr. Greg. Very nice, said the duck. And now we are going to allow each other to shoot you. I would have loved to have seen Mr. Greg's face just then. Oh, please, cried Mrs. Greg. My 2 little children are up here with us. You wouldn't shoot my children. Yesterday you shot my children, said the duck. You shot all 6 of my children. I'll never do it again, cried Mr. Greg. Never, never, never. Do you really mean that? Asked the duck. I do mean it, said Mr. Greg. I'll never shoot another duck as long as I live. That's not good enough, said the duck. What about deer? I'll do anything if you'll only put down those guns, cried Mr. Greg. I'll never shoot another duck or another deer or anything else again. Will you give me your word on that, said the duck. I will, said Mr. Greg. Will you throw away your guns? Asked the duck. I will break them into tiny bits, said Mr. Greg, and never again need you be afraid of me or my family. Very well, said the duck. You may now come down. And by the way, I congratulate you on the nest. For a first effort, it's pretty good. Mr. and Mrs. Greg and Philip and William hopped out of the nest and flew down. There they go. All at once, everything went black before their eyes, and they couldn't see. At the same time, they had a funny feeling that came all over them, and they heard a great wind blowing in their ears. Kind of eerie. Then the black that was before their eyes turned to blue, to green, to red, and then to gold, and suddenly there they were, standing in the lovely bright sunshine in their own garden, near their own house, and everything was back to normal once again. There they go, back to normal people. Our wings have gone, cried Mr. Greg. Our arms have come back. And now we're not tiny anymore, laughed Mrs. Greg. Oh, I'm so glad. Philip and William began dancing about with joy. Then, high above their heads, they heard the call of a wild duck. They all looked up and saw the four birds, lovely against the blue sky, flying very close together, heading back to the lake in the woods. It must have been about a half an hour that I myself walked into the Greggs' garden. I'd come to see how things were going, and I must admit I was expecting the worst. At the gate, I stopped and stared. It was a queer sight. In one corner, Mr. Gregg was smashing all 3 guns into tiny pieces with a huge hammer. In another corner, Mrs. Gregg was placing beautiful flowers upon 16 tiny mounds of soil, which I later learned were the graves of the ducks they had shot the day before. There they go, doing what they promised for those ducks. And in the middle of the yard stood Philip and William with their sack of their father's best barley beside them. They were surrounded by ducks, doves, pigeons, sparrows, robins, larks, and many other kinds that I did not know. And the birds were eating the barley that the boys were scattering by the handful. A lot of birds. "Good morning, Mr. Gregg," I said. Mr. Gregg lowered his hammer and looked at me. "My name is not Gregg anymore," he said. "In honor of my feathered friends, I've changed it from Gregg to Egg." I am Mrs. Egg," said Mrs. Gregg. "What happened?" I asked. They seemed to have gone completely dotty, all 4 of them. Philip and William began to tell me the whole story. When they had finished, William said, "Look, there's the nest. Can you see it right up at the top of the tree? That's where we slept last night." "I built it all myself," Mr. Egg said proudly. "Every stick of it." "If you don't believe us," Mrs. Egg said, "just go into the house and take a look at the bathroom. It's a mess. They filled the tub right up to the brim," Philip said. "They must have been swimming around in it all night. And feathers everywhere." "Ducks like water," Mr. Egg said. "I'm just glad they had a good time." Then, from somewhere over by the lake, there came a loud bang. "Someone's shooting," I cried. "That'll be Jim Cooper," Mr. Egg said. "Him and his 3 boys. They're shooting mad. Those Coopers are. The whole family." Suddenly, I started to see red. I got very hot all over. Then the tip of my finger began tingling most terribly. I could feel the power building up and up inside me. I turned and started running towards the lake as fast as I could. "Hey!" Mr. Egg shouted. "What's up? Where are you going?" "To find the Coopers," I called back. "But why?" "You wait and see," I said. "They'll be nesting in the trees tonight. Every one of them." And there you go. She's off to save more ducks and more birds, right? Okay. Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. And we'll see you tomorrow with another one. Fritzl says, have a great day. Bye.